and I really appreciate everybody's undivided attention and efforts. Everybody's been very engaged in the process, and that's been, I think, really helpful. Sorry, dog. Really helpful for us, I think, as a committee. It has felt very collaborative and mutual. So I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate all the work that Whitney has done. She very graciously took all the recommendations out of the table format and put them in an outline, and I appreciate that so much. Whitney, do you want to say anything to the committee?
Yeah, thank you guys for all your hard work. I thought last week went especially well. I'm looking forward to this week. And thank you so much, Margie, for your leadership. I know how many hours outside of this you've spent on this work. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to put together.
Great. So I would love to open the meeting by turning it over to John or Eric to give us an update on the chief search.
I'm happy to provide that. So Chief of Police finalists, out-of-town finalists came to town on Wednesday. They spent Thursday with the interview panel and also with our own Dwight Lewis, who in a sort of intricate juggling operation had half-hour interviews with all 5 of the candidates Thursday morning. As soon as those wrapped up, we put them on MNN, and because we didn't want anyone to be able to watch another person answering questions. That went really well. Dwight was fantastic, I think, and I would encourage any of you who are interested in that to go watch those interviews. On Friday, the mayor interviewed all the candidates. They've all now left town. Several of them stayed for the weekend. And it is now the time for the mayor to make his decision. So hoping that will occur this month.
So John, they won't narrow it any further. He's going to choose from one of these 5 based on the interviews that have already occurred, correct?
Correct.
And so can you give us the timeline once all the committees approve their recommendations and send them over, what happens to the recommendations after that?
Yes. So what we'll be doing is we'll have a chairs meeting later this week, and that will be an opportunity to sort of go over next steps. And also there are 1 or 2 areas where different committees are sort of in the same space. So we see that meeting as a time to rationalize that. Next steps will be sitting down with the co-chairs and coming up with a writing plan. Our goal is to get this done before Thanksgiving. We're looking at the 18th. So it is time to start working on that. And we have a meeting scheduled with Mayor Dean and Mr. Lewis for tomorrow to sort of present ideas on how to get your recommendations into final format, which we'll be sharing with the committee co-chairs later this week.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for John or Eric?
This is Clifton. Just to let John know, he's got a really good poker face. I like that, John, and you hold it close to the vest.
You're the first person who's ever told me that, Clifton. Thank you. I'm very, very flattered.
Gary, have you got anything from the phone?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Dontre, if you will give me the wand, I will share the document. Let's see. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay, so we'll run through pretty quickly. If you have anything you'd like to add or talk about as we're going through the document, please speak up. I'm trying to get my screen so that I can see you all and see the document. All right. Again, thanks to Whitney for converting this over out of the table and into this this document that took a lot of time. You should really see the same thing that you saw in the tables. But I want to make sure we just go through this really quickly before we take the consensus vote. The goal was to build community trust and confidence in Mnpd overall and in each neighborhood, as there are significant gaps in community trust. Mnpd reflects the diversity of Nashville, Davidson County at all levels and in the department, in all departments of the force. That's the result, condition, and the desired goal. The problem is recruitment behaviors currently work against this goal, and Mnpd does not attract enough qualified minority and women applicants. So recruitment, our statement is commit to a new approach to recruitment that builds trust with Nashvillians, increases the number of minority and women applicants through innovative recruiting strategies, and focuses on sustainable workforce outcomes. And so you can see there the bullet points underneath that. Those are going to be the same things that were in the table. And there were no changes, I don't think, Whitney, to this, to these bullet points. And you can see the timeline here. Timeline, we've included that because I think as a committee, we felt like it was important to place some time constraints around these recommendations. At least twice a year, recruit an applicant pool that mirrors the Davidson County Nashville population. Report to the Davidson County community the demographics of the applicants for Mnpd officer candidate through a coordinated communications effort between the mayor's office and Mnpd leadership. And again, you can see the bullet points which were also in the table. Any comments on those? Timeline on that was 12 months to begin the new strategy, 36 months to see a population of sworn personnel that reflects the Davidson County Nashville population. Here we have the increased digital efforts to recruit Mnpd candidates. And again, the same bullet points. Timeline on that is 18 to 24 months. Eliminate possible barriers and disqualifiers to hiring candidates from underrepresented demographics. Again, I think you're going to see that the SMEs that we had testify before our committee, I think you're going to see bits and pieces of their testimony throughout these recommendations. And that, of course, was from Chief Fletcher. Timeline on that is pretty immediate. It begins January 2021. Yes, Demetria.
I predict this to be Monday.
Pardon? Say that again.
I said I predict that particular recommendation will be newsworthy.
I think that's great. Bring it on, right? Okay, establish new recruiting and hiring processes that emphasize character first. Develop training that fosters the necessary skills, knowledge, and abilities. And I think we heard this from two SMEs. We heard this from Chief Meese and Chief Balcom, and then it was sort of mirrored by current Deputy Chief Loki. And I think they've already begun to make some changes, but I think reinforcing those with our recommendations is a great idea. We also have in there assess culture, maintain diverse Mnpd training staff, and of course, increase diversity training for Mnpd Academy staff. Timeline 12 months. Retention, problem statement is forced demographics show that Black officers as a group are oldest, reflecting attrition before retirement age and fewer numbers of young recruits. Women and Latino officers are the youngest and smallest demographic group on the force. And of course, here we've got institute standard practices to retain existing Black male, women, Latino, and other non-white officers in the force. utilize workforce development strategies to improve retention, increase promotional opportunities and assignment-based pay to attract minority candidates and women. And the bullet points. You'll see in here, initiate a 2-year study of exit interview data and conduct anonymous internal and external surveys. I know that Mac had a question around involving the COB in this particular bullet point. Mac, do you want to speak to that? Hearing silence, I'm going to say no.
Can I?
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question for me? I'm so very sorry.
Okay, so under this particular bullet point, initiate a 2-year study of exit interview data and conduct anonymous internal and external surveys.
Okay.
You had a question on this bullet point in the SharePoint document around involving the COB as part of the exit interview strategy.
I think I made that comment.
Yeah, this okay, thanks.
Okay.
I was trying to recollect on that one. Thank you, Sabina.
So, okay, Sabina, then speak to that, please.
I think the question, I think at the end of the meeting last time, Dwight Lewis mentioned something about like, you know, should you be doing anonymous surveys? Like you need to be capturing that data. And so then it just occurred to me, like, could the COB be doing that work? And I actually talked with someone on the COB, and it's not a part of their mission right now, but I mean, we could always recommend it or recommending an outside source, because I think our fear was when officers leaving, they still need recommendations from Mnpd. Would they be honest with what they're saying? And so maybe if we just recommend an outside source doing that, or, you know, a safe space where that can be done. And then if the COB is the right organization, if that's part of their mission, you know, they're still new, then maybe that they can work it out that way. But just trying to safeguard the privacy of the officers.
And Sabina's right. That's exactly what I think both our comments was, if we could get an outside source where they could anonymously say if they left the force in June, maybe a few months down the line, that survey would go out, and with no indication of who it went out to. And that way, again, like she's saying, it could be an honest response, because it might come back, you know, 3-4 months. So you don't know, you wouldn't know. You know, some people, there may be a couple of people who have left by then, so you wouldn't know who actually, you know, filled that out. And again, that form would go directly to that outside source, not to the police department. And all the source would do is just report back, these are some of the results from the survey, with no demographics or anything whatsoever to know, oh, it came from a Black male, or, you know, a Latino or female. That way, all responses would be anonymous.
Yeah. So just to jump in and offer one or two other things for you to think about. One is, of course, you could ask Metro HR to do exit surveys. That might be a way to get at that, and Metro HR could aggregate that information in a way which didn't put any single officer on the spot. I don't know if officers care or not if they're leaving the department, but I just wanted to suggest that as another option for you all to consider.
That was my thought too. Go ahead, Sabina.
Do they not do anything right now? Like, what is the process of knowing why someone left? Is that just a form? It's not an interview or anything, I assume.
I don't really know what kind of process there is around exits right now. I don't know if there's an attempt to capture information or not.
So, and there's, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Margie. I was going to say that the concern, even though they're leaving, you know, they may still need a reference. And so they didn't want to leave a bad exit interview, or they didn't want the police department to know who they were if they had a bad exit interview, so they could still get a proper maybe a very good officer leaving, hadn't done anything, wrong. He's just maybe going for more money or moving, changes in his life, but he was unhappy. And so they didn't want anybody to know who was getting that reference. And so that's why we suggested the outside organization so that they can freely talk and not have to worry about not getting that proper reference or any.
Madam Chair, this is Gary. Can I interject something?
Yes, Gary, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Just real quickly, I think my personal opinion is we just simply tell them what we want, let them figure out the best way to do it. We can make all kind of recommendations. One might even be, what is it, Reggie? You're the president of the Black Police Officers Association. So any minority, I feel comfortable would trust them. But I don't think we should get into trying to tell them who to select. We just simply say that they do anonymous interviews from outside agencies other than within the department.
And I think it's also important to realize if anything has Metro in front of it, the police officers are not going to feel like it's anonymous. So even if you say Metro HR, they're going to feel like it's going to come back to Metro. So they're not going to want to do that and be honest about it.
I totally agree. That's the reason I say an outside agency.
Right. Definitely would need to be an outside. Mm-hmm.
How does everybody feel about adding that bullet point?
That it's not necessarily limiting, like it's just suggesting that it could be Metro HR or the COB. But ultimately it can go to wherever the chief decides.
I think it's still, Margie, it's Daryl. I think it's still offering too much direction. I say we just direct that exit interviews be conducted for all active officers beginning immediately.
Yeah, that's my view as well.
Because I agree with Reggie, anything with Metro linked to it, officers are just not going to buy into it. And the chief, that's terrifying in and of itself. So him doing an exit interview wouldn't be positive. So it really just needs to be an agency, but we should leave them to decide that upon their own.
So if I said chief shall initiate exit interviews be conducted by an external entity, that says what we want it to say.
Yep. While we're still on this, I'll wait till the end. I still have a bit of a problem with highlighted statement number 2.
So institute standard practices to retain existing Black male, women, Latino, and other non-white officers in the force.
Correct. I think the data was abundantly clear that we have a retention problem indifferent of race and gender. So I think the efforts to quell that and reduce the costs associated with it need to be, the statement should be something to, we need to change the trajectory of retention with an emphasis on Black male, women, Latino, and other underrepresented groups. But overall, we're losing people, and that just costs too much money. Something's going on internally in terms of culture.
So if we said institute new practices to retain existing Black male, women, and Latino, and other non-white officers in the force, is that getting closer?
Focusing on race and gender, I think you would have to say retain officers with an emphasis on existing. Retain sworn officers. Now I'm happy. I think the word on needs to be.
Okay. How does the group feel about that? I think that reads pretty well.
missing the word on between emphasis and existing. And I think instead of saying black male, I think again, there's probably a way to just to say black officers, Latino officers, because it's both male and female.
How's that, Daryl?
I'm
Say
nitpicking.
black.
I'm okay. We could play this game all night with me. I'm not fun at this.
So, but is this satisfactory?
Well, I think Daryl's just saying right there, no, if you say black officers and Latino officers, you wouldn't have to put women or male or women, men or women.
Well, I think we're considering women as not a minority because they are not a population minority, but they are a significant minority within law enforcement. So I think that's why we segregated them out.
Do you maybe want to link together your ethnic names, black and Latino, and then go into gender?
Okay.
It will read a little bit easier. The language is still a bit exclusive of other underrepresented ethnicities.
So you'd swap out non-white officers for underrepresented. Is that right?
Yep.
I like that.
How's that?
I'm happy now. Check it out.
Any dissent? Moving on. Thank you for that. Utilize workforce development strategies to improve retention rates for minority officers and women. Increase promotional opportunities and assignment-based pay. Set aggressive goals to improve retention rates so that MNPD reflects the population. We've been through this. Timeline 6 months, 36 months to measure. Promotion. Problem. The leadership of MNPD is significantly less diverse than the population of Nashville. Establish a clear and transparent process for staff to be promoted into valued leadership roles and periodically report to the public on promotions. Prioritize the promotion of qualified minority and women candidates to improve representation within the police department. Immediate start, 48 months or sooner to see statistical change in demographic rank MNPD population. All right. Moving on to culture. MNPD culture and officer behaviors reflect an equitable distribution of discretion and skills to fairly engage across all encounters internally and externally. Problem. The current training and promotion policies and procedures fail to equip officers with skills to connect with diverse populations and reflects the default position of police as warrior, not guardian. Problem. The morale within the MNPD suffers because of a perception of inconsistent disciplinary action, application. And so we changed this. Dee and I talked this afternoon. The way it was written initially, it didn't, it wasn't evidence-based. We don't really have enough evidence, I think, to support this assertion. And so we know that there is a perception of inconsistent disciplinary application. And so I think that does need to be addressed. And we can say that based on evidence that's been brought before our committee. Does anybody have any discussion they want to have around that?
Yeah, this is I'm sorry, go ahead, Gary.
I just want to say I agree that it could be changed, clarified, that since we can't verify it, I think you're correct in changing it.
Clifton?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Establish a timely and Establish a transparent and timely process for complaints and disciplinary action. Publish the SOP that is readily accessible. Complete all investigations of officers who have been taken off duty. And I put in parentheses decommissioned within 30 days. And so, David, you had some questions around that. Are you satisfied with that language?
Yes, that's
Okay. Assemble a multidisciplinary team to review and revise SOP on discipline and disciplinary investigations. Publish the SOP document. Communicate the process to all parties involved in the investigative process, and the timeline to that is 12 months to implement. Problem: the MNPD has had public claims of sexual assault, sexual harassment complaints. So create a workplace where sexual harassment and assault is not tolerated, and ensure that internal MNPD complaints are handled in a trauma-responsive manner. Refer all sexual assault investigations to an outside agency in consultation with the district attorney's office. Create a zero tolerance policy around sexual assault and sexual harassment. And then we have the bullet points that were in the table, 12 to 18 months. Reduce the number of harassment complaints within the department by creating a culturally aware workplace, as well as conducting training on proper speech and behavior. And then we've got the same bullets that were in the table.
Hey, Margie.
Yes.
I raised this question last time, and I'll mention it again just to make sure we're not creating a problem. Obviously, we want to make sure that there's less harassment occurring in the police force. I just want to make sure we don't create some sort of metric that induces the organization to disincentivize or discourage the filing of complaints. If everybody reads that and thinks that doesn't create a problem, then I'm fine. I just want to just make sure we feel that we're okay there.
I think that's valid. We certainly do not want to discourage complaints. Does anybody have anything on that they want to add? So do you want to change this, reduce the number through innovative training programs?
Well, if other people don't think it constitutes an issue, then I'm fine. I just want to have it, just make sure everybody rereads it and feels comfortable that we're not creating a bad incentive here. So if everybody's fine with it, then I'm fine with it.
Okay. All right, very good. 12 months. Develop a multidisciplinary working group to help MNPD improve trauma-responsive policies. Establish relationships with outside agencies to monitor adherence to new policies. And again, those the same bullet points that were in the table. Timeline 12 months. We have a problem statement. The current culture of the MNPD is not inclusive for all groups. So enhance internal training to ensure an equitable and inclusive workforce where all staff and therefore community members will feel safe and are able to thrive within MNPD. And again, the same bullet points. Timeline, start process within 12 months. So that brings us to the end of the document.
So I comment with it. So, and I mentioned at the end of our last meeting that, and I was noticing that there needs to be diversity, cultural competency, anti-bias training within the department, within the workforce, right? And then that we should include that, but also just thinking like under the sexual harassment, when we have reduced number of harassments, and the first bullet point was the MNPD will increase diversity training. And so that's kind of the same thing, just making sure that that's, do you want to add it on there also, or just, and is anyone going to think of that as just being like Title VII training, but it has to be like all type of anti-bias cultural competency training within the department. This would you be like a regular basis?
Yeah. Would you want to change this phrase diversity training to anti-bias and cultural competency training?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sabina, I don't know, would a sensitivity training be on the same line as that?
Like, I think when you say cultural competency, I think it's the same line as like sensitivity training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Dia, let me know, is this also going to a little bit cross over with one of the other committees?
It will cross over with one of the other committees. They are oriented in the same way you all are. And so different language, same principle.
Okay.
So we'll want to reconcile it in the chair's meeting this Wednesday.
But something along these lines is going to make it into the final recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So that brings us, does anybody have any other comments or concerns or under the culture section of this document? Gary, I want to make sure we're hearing from you on the phone. Are you good with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, so that takes us.
If you would permit me real quick, I would like to thank you and the vice chair both. Y'all have both done a nice
Thank
job.
you, Gary. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
And if I just want to interject something completely different. Dontre, would you mind sending an invitation to Dwight Lewis? He does not have one and was hoping to get on line. I sent you an email which has his email address. Apologies for interrupting the flow. Y'all are doing awesome.
That's okay. John, did I didn't have his email. Was he sent this document? Did anybody forward that on to him?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure, but I will do so now since I'm in communication.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we'll wait a couple of minutes for him to get on, and I'd like to open up the floor again to see if anybody has any final comments or thoughts before we take a consensus vote on this document. Okay.
You know, I guess the only comment I have is that, and this probably isn't even relevant, but I'll go ahead and say it. I think, and part of it is that so much of what we're trying to do is bring in this younger generation of talent who are energized about being part of Metro Police. And I think that all of these sort of elements that we've put into place here are very great. And I think they're pretty prescribed. And I wonder if there is some way to almost empower them to like infuse excitement and, energy into the culture, and maybe that's where, you kind of can't force a great culture. Sometimes it's got to come from within. And I don't know whether there's any again, this may be way afield from what we're supposed to be doing, but I do wonder if we can also sort of let them entrust the people who are going to be so vital to the future culture to try to build that and do things that make it really unique and special and their own. And I don't know, but that's just a thought.
Dia, you probably have the greatest knowledge of our group on kind of what the other committees are doing and kind of answering what Beth's discussion was. I mean, do you think that this will create some momentum within the police department?
Goodness, that is a really big question, and I feel completely ill-equipped to answer it. It would not be certainly my area of expertise. I think Beth raises a very unique point that I don't recall hearing, because I think the concern has really focused on the need to build trust with the community and with all of Nashville's communities. So I think folks are really focused on that right now. But I think Beth raises a really interesting point.
Oh, Margie, you're muted.
Okay. Vote before he gets on, or do we want to wait to see if he's got any comment? John, do you have a preference?
I'm sorry, I was replying to an email from Dwight Lewis and completely checked out on the question.
I said, do we want to wait?
My vote to you, Dia.
Do we want to wait for Dwight to get on the call before we take the consensus vote?
I don't think so. I told him you were moving at remarkable speed and there were small adjustments.
Okay.
So he's focusing. Yeah, so I think you're good. Thank you, Deb.
Okay. Great. So we have gone through the document, and I think we are in agreement with the language and the recommendations of the document. And so we'd like to take a vote by acclamation. So if you would, come off of mute, and if you can, show your face as well and give us your vote of aye, and I'll start. My vote is aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Did we get to Gary's vote on the phone?
Yes, ma'am. I vote aye.
Okay, great. And did everybody vote? I think everybody voted. Okay, great. Then I think we have set our recommendations, and we can send them on to the mayor's office. I will send out this document with these little small corrections that we made, so that you have a final copy of the document from the workforce committee. I want to again thank you so much for everybody's work, and it's just been such a pleasure, I think, working with all of you and getting to know so many of you. I just appreciate all the support and the help and the sort of professionalism with which we've approached all these issues. Whitney?
Yes, thank you guys so much. You all have really been fascinating and a joy to work with. There's been such a diverse group of people on these calls, and I thank everyone for reaching out to their connections and drumming up these ideas so that we could have so many great experts come and talk to us, and really put out something that we can be proud of. And again, just really want to thank Margie for her leadership, and also everyone from the mayor's office and the people that have been facilitating these WebEx events. Thank you. I know spending 2 hours doing this every Monday night and more has maybe not always been your cup of tea. So a big thank everyone for the time they put on this.
And I also just want to say thank you from Mayor Cooper and from everyone on our team. Y'all have been fantastic. I have learned so much from listening to you and interacting with all of you. It's been really great. There's more work to do, but even beyond the duration of this commission, I hope that all of you will continue to sort of watch closely. We may reach out to you with questions from time to time. If you have any questions or want updates or have suggestions or anything at all, please continue to reach out to me and to Eric, and we really value what you've learned and your perspective on all this.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I also want to give a big shout out to Eric and Dia. Whitney and I could not have done this without their very, very close counsel. Dia has been so willing to get on the phone anytime. And of course, John, always, your counsel has been invaluable. I'd love to do a quick check out. We've done all the check-ins every Monday night, so I'd like to do a quick check out before we dismiss the meeting. Does anybody have any words that they'd like to say before we adjourn the meeting?
I do. Nobody else does.
Okay.
What I will say is thank you all for making me look good. All of us had a certain particular committee that we was over. You all were my committee that I was over. And so y'all just made me look great, so I can always brag and say, well, we're doing fine over here. I don't know what your problem is over there. So thank y'all for that. Thank you for your hard work, and just thank you for being who you are. The city definitely deserves you all. We definitely appreciate you all, and the mayor is definitely very happy for all the work you do. So definitely thank you.
I would like to chime in on making Eric look good. I don't know that it was us. I think it's that amazing new background that he has. You really look good tonight. You make the rest of us look a little dim. And a special shout out to my new friend Dia, who really helped bring the data committee together. She's an absolute unmined gem for the Metro Nashville folks. I hope they find ways to continue leveraging her innate ability to lead and be unwavering in her ability to draw the best out of people, because the data stuff is really challenging. And in every single one of those meetings, she was able to allow us to think, yet keep us focused in a way that created actionable outcomes. So Dia, great work.
Thank you so
I could
much,
not
Daryl.
agree
I really
more.
appreciate it.
I couldn't agree more. We're setting up mining operations, Daryl. Yeah, it's sustainable. It's sustainable, of course.
Sustainable is good, but lock her up and don't let her get away, because that's a hard skill set. And to the chair and Whitney, I know you guys were doing work above and beyond all of ours. And I know our commitment was a significant one. So to you two, kudos. And if you're ever downtown, let me know and I'll buy you lunch. Kudos, and if you're ever downtown, let me know and I'll buy you lunch.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thanks for all your work on the data committee. Yeah, you helped translate and explain some really great stuff that was super critical to putting this together.
This is Clifton. I'd just like to say thank you on the data, as well. And just to say, that we got a level of the data and all that the ordinary person does not get. So it would be very helpful to find a way in which the community could get a gander at some of this data, in the context, that makes simple-minded common sense. And Dia, I would love to work with you and Daryl on that, because I think it also has to come from a trusted voice, but the data, tells the true story, and the community needs to hear it in a way, that creates a safe environment, in which for them to grapple with.
Very wise words. We are looking at the full deck that was used in the half-day planning session as helping to tell the story by data. And so we are going to make certainly some of those data points available, because it is very important for the community to hear and to see. And so that will be in the report. And I can, if you no longer have that in your possession, I will send it out after we're done this evening to be sure that you have it. It is in the folders. I know there's a lot in the folder, but I want to be sure that you all have it and can see it. But if you have other thoughts, please feel free to email me. And I just, really appreciate all the kind commentary. It's really been a joy to work with you all. Thank you so much.
Dia and John, I have a question. Who is going checking on these timelines as we've established?
So I'll answer that question. So the way the report will work, Phil, is you know, we will put it out with your recommendations in a very public fashion. And the entire point is to have clarity around the goals and to be public about it. There is, I think, complete agreement on the broad goals. I don't think that there's anything even controversial about, you know, diversity, about neighborhood policing, about the kind of training recommendations that are coming out. So, you know, the mayor will, I feel certain, be saying in public that we will be working closely with Mnpd to make sure that they realize the, you know, goals that are being set forth by the commission. And that is how that will work.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. You know, through the years, I've been on a lot of committees, and some of the reports like this sit on a shelf and gather dust, and we don't want to see that, particularly after all the hard work that's gone into it. Not only our committee, but the other committees are involved in this overall commission.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right, so seeing no further discussion for the last time, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.